$394 million. When is that not enough? Let's talk about Dune, what was good, what was bad, how it performed, and why it didn't do better. I've been a really big fan of the story since I first read it, and I was really looking forward to the new movie. First of all, I think overall the film was very good. It was a fun movie to watch. The sales have been quite robust and have surpassed the estimates for production and marketing combined. I think it's even marginally profitable. And so there is no doubt, as the team have already tweeted out, that the story of Paul Atreides will be told in full, with part 2 already greenlit. I think the acting was really good. All the main characters really came to life, clearly distinct. Their various motivations and loyalties are clear for everyone to see. The cinematography, of course, was awesome. Nothing much more needs to be added here. It was wonderful to watch. The graphics components in the CGI things were great as well. They used CGI when required, but large portions of the filming and scenes were done with real models and props and with natural illumination, so it did really give the film an authentic look without the garishness of computer generated models and synthetic lighting that we often see in these kind of sci-fi movies. And when it comes to the music, the score, oh my god, it was amazing. Hans Zimmer never disappoints. There were a few things that the movie kind of lacked or needed a bit more of, I think. In addition to, Chinese narrative of the Fremen's perspective at the beginning, we kind of did need an explanation or introduction to the various factions with some pictures or some kind of imagery just to show what the various factions are, and so we can, as an audience, know who's who, like they kind of did at the beginning of Lord of the Rings. I think the opening part, the first 10 minutes, 10, 15, 20 minutes, was a little bit disjointed. I know what they were trying to do. It's very complicated to try to introduce all these various different characters and factions and, set the story and get it going. I think some people like the way he'd done it, but I feel like it was a little bit disjointed and needed to be a little bit slower, or maybe have some more explicit explanations of exactly what we're seeing or what's going on. I think they kind of missed out on explaining about the mentats and their importance in the society, and the whole ban on thinking machines part of it that kind of did need to be explained better, I think, just to highlight the significance of the world they're living in without computers. And I think also later on, when the deal was done, sort of with the Imperial Sardaukar kind of joining in with the Harkonnens to attack the Atreides, that also needed to be, I know they clearly said, if the Emperor wills it, then we'll do it and so on, but I think it needs to be more clearly pointed out, that they've joined forces, and I think one of the characters kind of mumbles it later on after the attack, but I think it needed to have been explained a little bit better. I think there were some things where the time was wasted a little bit, so things like, the ornithopter wings unfolding scene and the thing. I know Denis Villeneuve was very keen about that, and they spent a lot of energy into creating the ornithopters as close to the book's description as possible, but I think spending so much time on the mechanics of the wings and so on was a little bit of a waste of time. I think they could have just speeded that up a little bit. The other thing I noticed was there's a scene with the housekeeper kind of has that revelatory scream and is sort of or wail, and is kind of so awe-inspired or taken aback by the fact that this prophecy about Lady Jessica has come true and it's her and so on. That could have been better presented if the woman kind of looked shocked in silence, or looked awed and sort of fell down. So I think that whole sort of wailing, screaming thing looks kind of strange as an expression of amazement. I know it's close to the what's described in the story, but I think some parts of the story were kind of taken too literally into the movie adaptation. So if we look at the outcome, so the only measure that really matters, I guess, in terms of for movie success is sales. And with the hype that we got from the early reviews in 2020 from people who'd seen scenes and clips and so on of it, was that that Denis Villeneuve had created the next Lord of the Rings in terms of the style, the tone, and the world building. And Dune, if adapted correctly, could well have been Lord of the Rings for the 2020s. And I think he's done well in terms of the world building and the tone and the style and so on, but there's something lacking a little bit in terms of the broader appeal. And if we look at the figures from By the Numbers, they show that Dune really hasn't done that well in comparison to Lord of the Rings or other sorts of recent or older well-made and popular successful movies. In fact, his performance is actually on par with his other big work from 2017, Blade Runner 2049. So there is a it's a bit disappointing really to see that outcome. And he's loved this book from a very young age, and it does look like a lot of his first impressions from his youth have not only stuck with him all these years, but have made their way into the film. And this is both good in some ways and bad in other ways. So despite the runtime, the story did feel quite rushed at the beginning while slowing down too much at unimportant points. And in fact, there are much longer extended cuts or rumors of that the story was much longer. All kinds of scenes were deleted and so on just to make it fit into a more reasonable time. That being said, when I got to the end of the movie, I was surprised where the time had gone. It was like, oh, okay, we're already at the halfway point. So it does kind of flow, but it's kind of I felt that there was a kind of a janky kind of rhythm in this movie, and it's a little bit strange. I think, Dune can be very confusing as it is when you're reading it, and such a tome will naturally be very difficult to adapt into a movie form. I think the movie needed to have a little more time spent on explanation to help the audience sort of figure out what exactly they're watching at any given point. That is, what exactly is going on at this point, what is the significance of this scene. I could understand things because I've read the book. The thing is that if you're a complete outsider and this is a new story for you, new world for you, then knowing who these characters are and what we're seeing and, the foundation is sort of lacking. And this watching the movie kind of felt like reading the book for the first time, trying to put all the pieces together. But in a book, it's okay because you can kind of flip back a few pages and read over something again to make yourself clear on what's going on. In a movie, you can't do that, and it kind of spoils the experience, I feel. Fortunately, it does look like the lack of clarity and or difficulty following some of the events has led to people's curiosity being piqued, with everyone sort of flocking online in search of various answers rather than simply becoming frustrated and just leaving the franchise behind completely. So a lot of people seem to be more interested in the story and have all these questions that lead them to become more involved with the world that Frank Herbert created. My overall feeling, having watched the movie twice in the cinema, is that it was a little dry and a little too disjointed and a little bit empty. It was a good production, but it wasn't compelling. Lord of the Rings was a strange new story for a lot of people, for the vast majority of people who watched the movie, and yet it did stupendously well with every age demographic in every global territory. What was the obstacle to such success for Dune? Why didn't it replicate that success? Was it the sci-fi background? Was it the predominance of a desert world, which most people in the world can't really relate to? I think Denis Villeneuve has made a great effort and produced something of high quality, something that will last through time, but I think it didn't do better because of the combination of a complicated story, slightly odd pacing, and perhaps it was just too alien after all. So guys, those are my thoughts on the Dune movie. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please leave a comment and let me know what you think. Leave a like if you like what I have to say, and I will see you guys in the next one.